As of now, all modes of transport into and out of Qatar by way of Saudi Arabia, which is their only neighbor, are all shut down. Thousands of travelers have been affected by this move, as Doha is used as a major transfer hub in that region for carriers such as Qatar Airways, Emirates, and Etihad. Now, Qataris have already begun rationing food and water as the tiny GCC nation is being isolated by its partners from what seemingly appears out of the blue. So here to shed more light on all of this, former U.S. diplomat Jim Jatras is joining us. Jim, good to be here with you.
Good to be here with you, Manila.
So this move to isolate Qatar appears to be led by the Saudis and the rest of the GCC, plus Yemen and Libya's Benghazi government, and obviously they're kind of divided there. The Benghazi government are all falling in line. And this just breaking just a little while ago before we came on air, reports emerging claiming that this GCC rift is actually stemming from some sort of Russian hack of Qatari news websites. I don't know if you'd heard that before you came on air.
Yes.
And this hasn't been independently confirmed as of yet. In your opinion, what's really going on here? Why is this happening?
What's really going on here, the ostensible Saudi excuse for hammering Qatar is that the Qataris are supporting terrorism, which is a real pot calling the kettle black kind of thing. I mean, yes, the Qataris do support terrorism. So do the Saudis. They have the same clients in Syria, Al-Qaeda, ISIS, and all their various offshoots. That's not the problem. The problem is the Qataris support the Muslim Brotherhood, which is a nasty group, but it's not one certainly that the United States lists as a terrorist organization. And worst even, they talk to the Iranians, which is completely beyond the pale for Riyadh. And especially after President Trump went to Riyadh and essentially anointed Saudi Arabia as our champion in the region, I think they're feeling their oats and they're going after the Qataris to try to whip them into line on supporting the Muslim Brotherhood and no talking to the Iranians.
Now, I think that might be confusing some people between the Sunni population, which is what most of the GCC is, and the Shia population in Iran. Can you break that down for us a little bit? How is this working out, if that's the case?
It's not strictly a Sunni Shia thing in the sense that, Qatar is a mostly Sunni country. Bahrain is mostly Shia, but it has a Sunni ruler. Yes, in terms of the regional standoff between Saudi Arabia and Iran, it's bigger than that. But I think it's bigger than that because the Israelis obviously consider Iran their main enemy, and for reasons that are not quite clear, although I think it's coming largely from General McMaster and General Mattis, that Iran is the big state sponsor of terrorism, not Saudi Arabia, which of course is far and away the largest state sponsor of terrorism.
Now, there's talk swirling that the Saudi Prince Salman is looking to flex his muscles on the heels of President Trump's visit to sort of cement his ascension to the throne, and to do so, perhaps maybe looking to annex Qatar. Do you think that's on the table?
Well, the Saudi press has been tweeting the Qataris with the possibility of a coup. The coup's actually a fairly traditional way to change government in Qatar. There's always another Al-Thani cousin who can be put in place. Let's remember the first two Saudi states that went defunct in 1891, Qatar was part of the Saudi state at that point. And given that Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman has no compunction about destroying Yemen, for example, I don't rule it out entirely. There could be a coup in Qatar or even some overt Saudi intervention.
If that thing does happen, it's a move we haven't seen since 1990 when Saddam invaded Kuwait. How might the U.S. respond, seeing as we have 11,000 troops at the air base in Qatar?
Well, in a way, maybe that helps solve our problem, doesn't it? Because we have a forward headquarters for Central Command in Qatar. Right now, we have our two allies, Qatar and Saudi Arabia, at odds with one another. If they cease to be at odds because Qatar is no longer an independent country, either by annexation or by coup, doesn't that solve our problem?
Well, I can't answer that. You're the expert here, but I got to ask you one more thing while we're on the subject of air bases and potential coups. Now, the air base in Qatar, it's a strategic location for the U.S. air operations in the region. Today, American jets struck what they're calling pro-Assad or pro-government forces from that base. What are your thoughts on that strike? I know we're not talking about Qatar right now.
What that strike is, and remember we had an earlier strike near the same location near Al-Tanf, where American forces and some rebel groups, really minuscule groups that were supporting there, illegal illegally on Syrian territory. What we're trying to do is prevent the Syrian army and the Iraqi army, both of whom are fighting ISIS and Al-Qaeda that we claim to be the enemies of, and we see the beginning of the Kurdish-led advance on Raqqa. But more importantly, it seems to the people making these decisions, is to keep the Syrians and the Iranians apart, the Iraqis apart, because we don't want this Shiite corridor east to west through Iraq and Syria. I would say that's more important strategically to the people making these decisions than defeating ISIS.
Absolutely fascinating. You are not taking a coup off the table. Jim Jatras, former U.S. diplomat, thank you for coming in tonight.